Well, glad to have you, Phil. We'll have to see what gets triggered for you with any of these cards. Hi, Jillian.
Yeah, I don't have cards.
I kind of imagined that you probably weren't in a space to do that. So,
Who am
um,
who among us do you trust enough to draw a card for you?
there you go.
Aha. I
Well,
trust
Mike, I
all of
think
you.
since you asked, Mike, I think perhaps you want to draw a card for Phil.
I would be happy to have Mike draw cards for me.
Uh-oh, hope it's a good one. I didn't even look at this yet, so
Oh,
Oh
okay.
no.
Well, that's a pleasant
Ah,
omen for you there, Phil.
that's
Go
that's
ahead, take a good look
cheery.
at it, Mike.
you might want to pull that back and give it to somebody else there, Phil.
Would you would you turn that one over, please?
First card I pulled, I decided not to keep.
And what
Sacrifice.
was the first one you pulled?
I pulled martyrdom in the victimization, negative in victimization. I don't do martyrdom very well, so I just said I'm not doing that one.
Okay. Okay. Well, good. We'll see what we're rejecting tonight. We're pushing out of our space. We're saying no way.
Yep.
Jillian, that was an interesting look that I just saw on your face. What did you get?
I haven't picked one yet.
Oh, you
But
haven't picked one.
I was endorsing Barbara's, action and attitude. Um okay. I got I got stubbornness, and the negative being obstinance.
Wow.
Okay.
So here's a pattern for us tonight, you guys. We've had three chief feature cards in the negative pole tonight. We've had
Hmm.
self-destruction, martyrdom, and stubbornness all in the negative poles. So Chi's feature, as a friend of mine likes to patronize me about, Chi's feature is making its appearance amongst us tonight. So it could be that some feelings of ego defense are really high and trying to take care of us.
I don't mind obstinance. I don't go there that often, but I just came off an organizing call and I'm thinking, you know what? I'm going to dig my heels in. I don't even feel as much need to build rapport with some of these guys. But I'm seriously, I've been out picketing against ICE this week. I don't mind a little obstinance. I could use a little obstinance.
It
Yep.
sounds like then it's a beneficial being in a shadow pole is a beneficial use for you about that.
Right. And when I look at the positive,
Hmm.
positive pole of willfulness,
Yeah.
that doesn't feel that doesn't feel real positive.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know.
Well,
It
all the
doesn't,
chief features, even in the positive pole, don't seem, for most interpretations, too glowing to anyone. But
right.
it sounds like obstinance has definitely served you this week.
Yeah.
Which,
For
which
me, it's like a partner of resilience and perseverance. It
mhm.
might be the negative pole of perseverance. I don't know, but I'll take it.
Okay, okay. And so, um, Kath or Connie, did either one of you want to report your cards before we move on? And what did Kath? I couldn't see what you got, Kath.
Yeah.
Negative pole of higher intellectual center.
Another negative pole.
So telepathy, huh?
Why
Oh,
do you have
interesting.
telepathy as negative?
It's just
I think it
general.
because I can be voyeuristic,
Oh,
reading somebody's mind
In the
um
higher?
in even in even it is it is a use of a higher talent, higher intellectual center, but telepathy can be invasive.
It can, but you have to have balanced centers to even get here, which implies no negative poles. That's
I
not
wonder
Too
always.
narrow in
sometimes, of
focus.
course, because even in the original Michael books, they have negative connotations.
Okay.
You know how it is. This teaching has its own precepts and structures and standards.
So it's just that it's positive pole. So I was looking at positive pole as just conceptualize.
Hmm.
I would think that would be every bit as vulnerable to ego at that level. That's all I was questioning, Steve. It's just like the balance. I didn't get the balance.
Got it. Got it. And again, like I've said to all of you about these cards, you are the arbiter of their use and their meaning. When you're asking me these questions, of course, I'm reporting to you from I, as the designer, point of view, but it's not the limit. So,
No problem.
all right. All right, gang. Well, welcome there, Thera Thutton. My Sweetums is going to join us tonight. So when she comes on, we'll let her catch up. But for what I wanted to start off with tonight is a little bit of a kind of just an idea refresher. As I said about the motivation cards, they use the Michael terminology, and I've tried to put the most broad outlines of the Michael teachings in these essential cards. And as many of you know, we different channels and at different stages of the evolution of this teaching, there have been many synonyms that have been used for the positive or negative poles. And in some cases, like say, slave to server, and reevaluation from, I mean, reevaluation from repression, and retardation, be from uh, reevaluate, what did I just say that? Reservation to and repression, and then reevaluation and retardation. So even some of the main concepts have changed in their terminology.
There's
But
24.
nonetheless, I'm sorry,
24.
what's that?
24. Phil has 24 overleaf charts listed.
Yeah, wow.
24.
So needless to say, the terminology is still there, but you could essentially arrange them and superimpose your own meanings on these. And that's the key I want to reiterate over and over again. All right. Tonight, I wanted to extend some of the other parts that I built into this deck, and then jump into what will be tonight the biggest of the, biggest meaning the most number of cards, the biggest spread that I designed for this deck. Pardon me. And that is the revelation spread. And the question that Connie posed last week, I'm going to let her pose it when we start picking cards again. But as I recall, Connie, it was something to the effect of what is the student of the future, or something of that nature. And again, I'm going to let you just cook with it. And when I come back in about 15 minutes, when we jump into the spread, I'm going to let you ask it out loud, and I will hold up the deck. And like what I've done several times, I hold up the deck and I run my finger over it. And then you guys tell me when to stop. And then I take that card and I put it down as part of the reading. So we'll be doing that this evening as part of the process. All right. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to run through a dozen slides or so, and hopefully they make sense. I want to refer you folks to this dual motivations graphic. And this graphic, by the way, appears in a much more truncated version on the opening cover of your pocket guide. So what you see here on the pocket guide may be a little easier to see because there's not as much. This larger graphic is what I have put in the ebook and on the website with greater description. So I wanted to, instead of explaining this graphic too much, I want you to understand what it's trying to signify. And the way that these cards were built, you remember I said they can, they can detect, direct, and describe. Well, what are they detecting, directing, and describing? And the answer is that you can ask questions in various ways that literally, symbolically here, refers to the left side of the screen, meaning that you're asking questions about what was being brought in from the circumstances, what might have been brought in from a past life if you're asking that. That's why I term it fate coming into you. And notice the graphic shows an arrow as the energy being brought into your space. And why that's significant is because to realize that these sometimes we're asking about the existing external forces or the existing karmic forces that our question might be inquiring about. Now, on the other side, you see the word will out there and it says the word out. And what this means is that when you're asking a question about wanting direction, you're then talking about utilizing your will to actually implement something with the help of the cards. So instead of, experiencing the fate of what is going on, you are deciding and asking about what you might do. So I did this graphic and I did it in smaller, again, in the front page of your motivations card pocket guide to indicate that sometimes you're asking questions about what's present, what's already there, what karmically might have been brought in, or what does the circumstances look like. But the other kind of questions you might ask to describe, detect or direct is what can I do about it? What emotions should I tap into rather than the ones that are the driving force and so forth. So I wanted to just bring that to your attention. Again, you can look at this more and I can make these slides, of course, available to you. But a few things I wanted to go over are things that I've mentioned as we've been reading the cards, and I want to call them out again as we go. Now, scope cards, I do probably, I believe, a lot more with the notion of ordinal versus exalted, because I have generalized it to meaning the micro perspective or the personal perspective or the inner perspective, meaning ordinal, and exalted, meaning the social or outer or group motive. So when you see exalted versus ordinal cards, know that those two flavors are being contrast. Exalted being ones, again, that are more group oriented, outward into the world, larger scale, macro level, if you will, ordinal being micro level. Also, you've heard me say about illuminated versus shadow cards. Another way of saying positive poles, illuminated, shadow, negative poles. Now, I've defined them like this because I wanted to use terms that didn't fall back onto what for me has been a very limiting binary in the Michael teachings to call it, love or fear. Because as Jillian just defined by her example, she said that obstinance has been a friend. It has been a useful tool for her. And indeed, I can see, given her example in that circumstance, that's a good example. But she's not even operating out of shadow in the sense that it's unconscious and unaware to her, but she's brought it into present and invoked it. And that's a very powerful place to know that any overleaf in any pole can be used deliberately, and that what the shadow poles usually mean is some form of contraction or defense.
But Steve,
Illuminating. Yes, go ahead.
sorry, but I would also put the caveat that it's not my it's not my fallback. It's limited right now. It's something I'm taking in small dose.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wouldn't want to be, I don't think the obstinacy would serve me well over time if it was my standard.
Sure,
But
absolutely.
situationally, it can work.
Exactly, situationally. And let me just take that point and emphasize it once again, ladies and gentlemen. Remember that all of these cards, any of these readings are situational. They are a checking the oil, so to speak, in a given moment, taking the temperature of something at a given moment. And as soon as these things are brought to awareness, energies at the subtle levels inside yourself or the person you're reading for, because I'm presuming that many of you are learning this tool because you want to implement it to some degree with people that you interact with when you feel like this could be a useful mechanism. So I agree with you completely. It is situational and they will continue to fluctuate. The last piece I just want to make clear is last year I invented two different sets of additional readings because I thought they were worthwhile. I'm going to jump ahead here before I go back. And that is that I created 7 different questions if you wanted to ask about, say, your own inner role subpersonality. So we sages might want to check in and say, well, gee, what is my warrior sub looking like right now? What is my scholar side looking like right now? Well, what we'll see in a minute is when I take you to the website, I'll show you in the drop-down menu. Now, the other part of this, the additional piece to these, is that the roles, as you all know, have their own archetypal kind of, call it, frame of reference, bigger than goal in a way, right? So the server is that helping energy, that service energy. The artisan is the creator, the inventor, the innovator. So any part of us that we're trying to say, okay, I want to access my inner creativity, go do the artisan spread. Okay. And it will tell you from an, if you will, from an artisan standpoint, whereas the subpersonality reading is looking literally at your own. So in a way, you may say, what I started talking about tonight, the inner part is that subpersonality. All these 7 subpersonalities that we all have, we've all lived them as an occupation at one past life or another. And just go see what it's like. Go see what it's like inside of yourself. But if you need to find out about how you might help be of service, how you might access creative energy, how you might face a challenge, the warrior, what kind of learning or knowledge utilization you might need, you do the scholar spread, situations about communication, instruction, even showmanship, you know, do the stage, for things that are much more. And by the way, for those of you who are that role, believe me, I invite you to have your feedback. These are all through me and, my doing, but they're not limited. And then, of course, the king is asking questions about your personal sovereignty, your sense of self-direction, your potency as a person. You notice there I have executive function. And so literally we're talking about an aspect of that involves your brain. I'm going to go back here a little bit if I can. I don't know how this, okay, I gotta go, there we go. All right. So again, just to remind you, this chart is in the booklet and it is also in the larger ebook that I created with this. By the way, before the end of this class, I will be sending you all the larger version of the ebook, which has more information about every card, every spread, etc. But as you can see here, I contrast the ordinal, personal, and impersonal. Exalted is really much more, it's not about me, it's about some bigger state of affairs going on. Private versus public, inward versus outward, plan, meaning what is the structure, and then the larger kind of etheric vision of things, masculine and feminine qualities, even. Because, I find that the ordinal really calls upon me to be just that. It calls upon me to be the planner, to do it from myself, etc. So anyway, you see all these dualities that I've put under ordinal and exalted. And in case you're wondering, if the question be asked, I will for this, is that why did I do this? And the answer simply is because I believed that the ordinal and exalted qualities in the Michael teaching were actually underexplored. And that these are many nuances that in any given reading, if you see, for instance, a whole lot of ordinal cards in a reading, look at that list there and say to yourself, what might this be suggesting? Is this something more interpersonal? Is this about my own labors? Is this about being with myself? Is this about some part of the whole? As opposed to, as you look at it the other side, is it formal? Is it about the larger scheme of things, etc.? So then again, here I did it, again, I believed that the contrasting positive and negative poles needed a further exploration. So this is what I did. And without reading them all, again, you can see some of the contrasts there. That I say that the illuminated pole is expansion and advance. That's what the message is if you get a lot of positive poles. It doesn't mean you're going to do them or you have to do them. You might have all sorts of red flags go off saying, oh, I don't know, about taking actions along what these are suggesting. But, compared to the negative poles, which say contract, maybe retreat, a strategic retreat is often a very useful thing and very wise thing. And you can see the contrast. You can feel more free, or at least you are free. It's alerting you are free to allow yourself to add to or have power in a situation. Otherwise, the shadow pole, and again, I come back to Jillian's example. She said, seize control. And that obstinance is a way of seizing momentary control, engaging active resistance in a deliberate way. So these are just some of the, dichotomies, if you will, between positive and negative poles. And when it comes to, I'm going to stop the share here. When it comes to the assessing an entire reading, and tonight, since we're going to be doing a very large reading, you'll obviously see we will count up. There will be some combination of negative poles and some combination of positive poles. Now, my suggestion to you is that how I interpret this, and last week we had a good example when we did the I believe we did the overleaf spread that Barbara asked about relative to the overleaves of the current time. And we got 6 of the 7 cards in the negative poles. So if we were to use that list again, there was a lot of contraction, a lot of holding on to security, a lot of, yes, fear, but also a lot of warning that this is a set of circumstances that is to be really scrutinized. So when we look at that and we look at the sheer number of positive and negative poles, we look to take an average, literally a weighted average, for those of you, who have done any kind of accounting or, balancing cost benefit analysis. And when you have a majority of one, if it's majority of positive poles, it's suggesting that there is room for expansion. if there's a majority of negative poles, it says caution. And in fact, there may even be retraction energy being called for. So, all right. So, I want to pause for a moment and just ask anyone have any questions about the cards, the ideas, anything get triggered for you that you'd like to discuss before we invite Connie to actually do a uh, a revelation card spread about her question, which I'll have her say in a moment. But first, again, let's review. Did anyone have a question about the class so far, today's class, and some of the concepts I brought up? Anything?
Well, on stubbornness, Michael told me the only reason I'm alive today is because I'm stubborn. And it's
Uh-huh.
and I know exactly what he's talking about. It would, and I won't go into it, but there was a situation about insurance, and I was able to influence who I got for my doctor, and I got a damn good surgeon back in 2015, and I think that's what he was talking about.
Uh,
Good for
very
you.
good, Mike. Very good. Yeah, you see, I don't think that all or any of the negative poles are necessarily bad. I continue, one of my major goals with my work in the applied Michael approach is to take the Michael teaching out of the binary and to help put it in situational uh, perspective. Because even the things that we call negative poles can sometimes be absolutely the most effective means in a moment, even if they seem rather desperate. And the objective is preserve life.
Isn't it also, I mean, what I got when I first started taking classes with you many years ago, was that there's no good experience and bad experience, it's experience.
Thank you, Jillian. Thank you, as
So,
always. Yes.
um, like even if you had something negative, if you recognize it and, what am I supposed to learn from this? What am I feeling? What am I experiencing? It just feels like one of the most useful things about the Michael teachings, and probably the reason I'm here, is because it's not judging per se, whatever experience you're having, but recognizing its experience.
Yeah.
And I want to offer a follow-up extension and expound upon what Jillian said. That is the positive, the beneficial, the worthwhile, the transcendental power of some of the premises of the Michael teaching is to be able to look to the Tao and what is its basic fundamental design. And its fundamental design is it does not judge experience as good or bad because it is just experience to the Tao. And then our essences, which are that little tiny spark of the Tao, to reference back to, some of the earliest language that was relayed in the teaching. We as that individual spark also want that wide spectrum of experience. Now, let me offer the human caveat
Mhm.
from the standpoint of offering compassion to the personality and even to the ego self. And that is pain can be felt here and it can feel very bad. And it can be very disruptive to a life. And it can be horrifying. Um, and so that is never to be diminished in its truthfulness, as well as to flip it over. We can experience ecstasy here, joy, serenity, at times feelings of connection and oneness. And notice in both of those extremes of pain and pleasure, they're not neutral. They're not, quote, just experience. We have a value that we have ascribed to them. And that is our right as persons, as personalities, to ascribe whatever value and meaning. The liberation that I see within the Michael teaching, which I'm so delighted that Jillian eloquently chimed in with, is that it can remind us that if we look at it from the broadest possible perspective of the Tao, it is not the good and evil of Christianity or any of the Abrahamic religions. It's not just about samsara and dharma like the Buddhist religions or the Hindu religion of karma and and indebtedness, etc. It is not just about that. It is about accruing all this experience through the unique lens that each and every one of us is. And when we can have that momentary stopgap to stand back and just say, okay, this, I honor that this feels horrible or this feels wonderful to me. And yet, from the standpoint of putting it into a binary category like good, bad, sin, or grace, or any of those kind of things that we have all been raised in various kind of religious traditions, then we break the binary. In other words, positive, negative, neutral. We get the triad. And if we're at the triad, then we can become freer to embrace our experience as opposed to potential to reject it. Thank you, Jillian. That's great. I appreciate it. Okay. So I'm going to share the screen just one more time to show you a revelation spread on the screen. And just for a couple of minutes so you can visually get the pattern in your mind. And then we'll go ahead and actually have ask Connie to ask her question in the way she said it. Okay. So as an experiment, notice the drop-down menu here, folks. The revelation card, I have the number of cards, after each one. And you see the revelation card spread is 10 cards, so it's large.
Yes.
Could somebody mute themselves, whoever is talking on the telephone there?
We're in my house right now out of the country. So
Um,
calling.
Yeah, I would appreciate that. But anyway, so here are the placeholders.
Hold on, just hold on.
History. Let's see who is.
It seems like Connie.
Oh, it's Connie. All right,
She's popping up.
Connie.
Can you mute
Yeah,
on
okay.
your end, Connie?
Oh yeah, let me go to do that. And
Yeah.
okay, got it. All right, there we go. Very good. Okay, folks. So back to the explanation.
I'm sorry, I have a smoke detector going off in my house and I have to figure out if I need to call the fire department.
Oh
So,
no, that's all right. Take care of urgent business. Go right ahead. So
when you say
I'm trying to mute you though, Connie.
Yeah, now she's unmuted again.
Yeah. Okay, so I've just muted her again. Okay, so here are the placeholders. All right. So it's history, potential. So this gives the background. Potential is, what we're shooting for, what's potentially possible, but not necessarily the only thing. What's the interference? What's the potential protection in this state of interactions for you, the questioner? What's going on in the unconscious? What's looming? And the looming card usually is you may say that if this is going on in the unconscious, what's looming is right on the edge of the unconscious. What else is playing right, or may be inserted in the process. The karmic themes. This is another way of saying not exactly blockages, but rather what kind of things are going on in the background that may or may not that are in fact influencing whatever our question is. So it's interesting because as you can see, I said, what are Michael's students of the future? And it's suggesting that the karmic themes involved is impatience, a chief feature, and of intolerance, which is really interesting because I just want to mention as a caveat, that's a theme that both myself and Troy Tolley have been addressing a lot, the hidden spiritual intolerances. So it's interesting to note that that could be one of the blockages or one of the things in the background that has to be investigated by us. Now, here's the hopes and fears. Can we get any more direct than that? We're talking about that our collective life task as students, as far as in relation to this teaching.
my my company built that thing.
Is that right?
Yep.
Built the Eiffel Tower, huh? That's
Yep.
a pretty big life task, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Way to go, Mike.
I got on a card.
Yes. And then the resolve is, notice what it says, the decision for action or change of attitude, which portends the outcome. So, what this would suggest to me is, because it is, first of all, the soul age cards, infant, baby, young, mature, and old, believe it or not, folks, for those of you who know the development cycle in project management, this is the proposal phase. The baby soul is the discovery phase. That is to say, where you go out and find facts and how can you make it happen. The young soul can also be considered the development phase, putting it together, making it start to work. Mature soul is the testing phase where it's actually working. And then the old soul one is full implementation. So I have that again written in the book as one of the ways that I use soul ages in an alternative form. It's the 5 stages of a process. And then, of course, it's capped off by the uh, cycle off card, which is the closing to an entire development cycle. So it's interesting how they parallel, and how you could, if they come up in this context, it can use. So it's suggesting that right now, people are, even in proposing the idea, everyone's feeling rather helpless about, and the idea would be is, how do we get out of helplessness to get this thing moving forward? Because if we stay in helplessness, we're projecting an energy of pretty much banality, but also no motion, right? Now, notice what it says here, what gets gotten. Now, some of you know that gets gotten is one of my um, particular jargon terms that I refer to as when something grasps either a deep comprehension or gets exposed. All right. And you'll see that in the Revelation spread, the get gotten card is related or goes back to the potential card. So what it's suggesting is that there is, for the potential to happen, and of course you have Venus there in the negative pole. If you want to keep that going, all you have to do is be arrogant about it and be vain about that you have the way that you want to appear. Now, how do you look through this? Now we have, so I'm going to now count the positive and negative poles. And when I do, I come up with 1, 2, okay, 2 negatives, and here are 2 positives. Here's 2 more negatives for a total of 4 out of 10 negatives so far. 5 negatives out of 10. Here is a positive pole. So we have 3 positive poles and 5 negative poles. And then we have 2 more. So we have a weighted reading here of 7 negative poles, shadow poles, contraction energy, as opposed to the 3 positive poles. And then when we look at the illuminated poles, we look at where they are. Okay. So this is an interesting one, right? So here's the interference, it says, and it's a positive pole of sage. And look at what the phrase says. This is a teachable moment. And isn't what we're trying to do by attracting new Michael students is to convey the teaching? But it says this is an interference. It's an energy hindering you or interfering with your plans. So I wonder what assumptions or what way we present this teaching already, which may be valid to us. This is all my interpretation, mind you, but somehow is not resonating out there. And then the protection that gives this whole activity a shield. And this is kind of interesting because it is a covenant card. It's one of these agreements, and it's saying there's another half to this. There is another role and self that's out there that wants to come in and help, that's really bonded to this. Now, I don't know exactly what that means, but the fact that it's a powerful card, and by the way, I will tell you what's also interesting, because again, I know this deck very well. This card, the protection, and then the hopes and fears are 67 life task and 68 essence twin are both covenant cards, and they're right next to each other in the deck, and they're both in the expansive positions of this reading. So you can, I hope I am doing at least a halfway relevant job in helping you to see what I see when doing this layout and how I'm interpreting these cards in a multi-level way. Because a caveat I want to introduce again is to harken back to many of my lectures on the mature soul era, and that is, or they are, that in the mature soul era, for us to advance in the positive pole, we have to learn to step up and grow beyond binary interpretations. We have to learn about and start embracing, as much as it means expanding our minds, and sometimes it feels overwhelming, complexity. What is complexity? It means multiple levels and multiple variables operating all at the same time. And the key word there is variables. So meaning that the quantities in each one of those things may change. The Revelation card spread is literally a representation of complexity because there are 10 pieces here in play. And of course, there are also multiple poles in play. And at any given time, it's signaling to us that there's a variable energy here, and how, and then it's our job to noodle through this and to see what intuitions it triggers in us. Now, because we're on the website, let me just mention that, of course, you'll notice at the bottom, these are my pre-scripted partial responses to the choice of these cards. That's the benefit of this app, is it'll go in and it'll give you a specific response that it pulls out of the list of responses that I have. And I believe I've already showed you that if you click on any one of the given cards, it will literally open a new window and it will bring you to that card standalone if you need more information. Now notice up here in the corner, it just opened a new window. See, we can go back to the spread immediately. But you can literally go up and down. You can read all the different kind of statements. You can read how I have interpreted this card in a larger perspective. But also, you can flip. There's righteousness, the negative pole, just by pressing that negative pole button, that red minus sign. And then you can see what those or other negative pole responses might be and go through them accordingly. So that's the benefit of doing them online And at least this is your first being informed about the placeholders. All right, so I'm going to try and get back, and there we go. All right. So did we lose Connie? Oh, she's back. Okay. And hopefully it was not a real fire. It was just her fire alarm. Okay. So any questions about what I just showed you guys that might have been stimulated in your thinking, either about the revelation spread as a unit you utilize, not so much just the content of that reading. Remember, I just did that as an example. I was trying to familiar you guys with the placeholders of that spread. Any questions on that one? Yes, Barbara.
So before you started that one, I actually pulled up a 10-card spread on the website and I put in a question
Uh-huh.
about my son and daughter-in-law have their house on the market. And I posed a question, what stands in the way of their house selling? And I had
Oh,
some really interesting things. So I was trying to follow your descriptions and with what I'm seeing with them to see how to interpret what came up. And it's actually, I can see quite a bit of things that are worth, I'll probably share it with them. And
Interesting.
it really raised some interesting things. For example, on Resolve, it came up with self-love. And I thought that was kind of interesting. Which I don't
Amor
remember ever
Primera.
seeing that card before, but that was pretty cool. But all the things that it said seemed to make sense given what I know about the situation and what I know about them. It actually it provided some insight that I hadn't thought about ever using before. So thank you for that.
Oh, well, I'm delighted to hear that, Barbara. That's wonderful. Thank you very much for sharing that.
Yeah.
And you'll notice that in these more complex spreads, the placeholders really give an added value, folks. It's not just the card which you draw to go in the placeholder, but the context of the placeholder itself really, again, remember it's complexity. It opens up a wider set of context and a wider set of variables. And so noodling over these. So just as a FYI, it is not uncommon for me when I do these larger spreads and I do them physically. I'll pick up my deck and I'll do my, Hindu flop, as I told you. When I found that online, I found that so interesting. I had no idea why it's called that, right? And then I turn them around, to make sure the poles get mixed up, etc. But when I do it, I will do a physical layout a lot of times when something is really going on. Now, I may choose it online, but then I will pick those cards out and mirror it physically so I can have it present. And I will noodle over those things. I will contemplate like Kath doing uh, with the higher intellectual center, sometimes for several days where I will just allow it to sink in. Why? Because it's a lot of data pieces.
Yeah.
For any of you who've, let's give some real world examples, right? Any of you who've had ever signed a complex contract, you evaluate all the clauses, right? And sometimes you say, how will this clause affect that clause? If you're buying a large vehicle or a house or something with multiple considerations, you're weighing those things. It's a cost benefit, but it's also trying to really challenge yourself to say, okay, which one seems to have more importance for me, and which one, if this is an obstacle, is this something I could live with in the greater mix of my decision? And for me, because even if I'm not brilliant, I don't have complete prescience in my own life, even though I'd love to, even if I am a channel. I will, go over these things, and then it helps me make what I believe is the most intuitively informed part of the decision I can. And that's the benefit I really offer with that spread to you guys. So, all right, having said that, we have Ms. Meyer. Are you ready, Ms. Meyer? Do you want to do the big spread?
I'm so sorry I left when you were explaining that. I'll have to go back and watch it from your video. But
Well, I'm just glad nothing was burning.
Yeah.
I know my renter, I have a renter in my house while we're gone, and he said his steak started smoking, and that
Oh,
was
yes.
It's done.
Mine goes off every time I boil steak.
so anyway.
That's
But it is weird that I'm here in Canada and I know what's going on in my house because of our alarm systems.
that's
Anyway,
the
so just to fill me in, you went to the spread on your Michael Card's site, and
Yes.
you asked the question. What was the question you asked?
I asked it just, what is the Michael student of the future?
Okay, that's good.
Okay, and
I thought
but
it was very
I,
interesting what came up. I thought it was very interesting.
yes, yes, it was. And what I did is I introduced the placeholders for
Mhm.
everyone,
Mhm.
and then we went through and actually did an assessment on each of the cards that
Mhm.
occupied those placeholders to see if they were in the positive and negative poles.
Yeah.
And that reading had a predominance 2-1, more than 2-1 for the negative poles. In other words,
Yeah.
contraction in shadow, um, and non-expansionary. But a couple of those key placeholders were expansionary. And yet, interestingly enough, the one that said interference was a positive pole card. As a matter of fact, ironically, for all the gang of sages that is in this class, we all probably looked at it and went, what? Communication dissemination? A bad thing? How could that be? Because, there's me, you, Jillian, Sarah, and Kath. We're all sages, right? And so we have a preponderance of sage energy here. All right. So, all right, Connie, how is your phrasing of this question? What does it look like to you?
I was so interested in your question because I think Kath had a comment. I saw her
Oh, she
hand go.
did. Okay, Kath. Sorry.
I'm
Did you
sorry.
have a comment?
No, I was just going to say that I think dissemination would indicate the manner in which it's going to be given.
Hmm.
You know, like we've been talking about other aspects of how you deliver a teaching, right? Like the form of the dissemination could be the issue. That's all I'm saying.
Ah, got it. Excellent. Thank you for the insight. That's wonderful input.
Well,
Um,
I would love to have the help of the group on thinking of what is the
okay.
right,
All right.
because
So here we go.
I liked your diagram,
You did. Okay.
and I think that it's showing two aspects of the question, which is what are motivating forces that might be operant right now that would attract people to the Michael teachings? And then the other part of that question is what would be the best way to attract to respond to that attraction? How do we reach out to? So that's too complicated a question. So,
Well, no, it's not necessarily too complicated, but it's probably two spreads.
oh, okay.
Yeah, it's probably too spread. Do you mind if I answer Twana's question before we launch?
Yeah.
Twana, you got a thumbs up going on your screen. Oh, it's just doing it. It's just saying, "Hey, yo." Okay. Okay, thank you. All right, so Connie, if
I
you were
guess
so which one would you
yeah.
like to do first? What do
So,
you how would you phrase your first question?
well, your question was, what is this Michael teaching
Student of
student
the
of the
future.
future? I'm more interested in what is the student that is currently now um, interested or potentially a Michael student. I want to know who they are now, because
Now,
then
okay.
that would be who we would attract to bring it into the future. What is the
All right.
attractor now? Because the question is there even an audience? If we have this wonderful offerings and we bring forward all these YouTubes and all this information, is there anybody out there who's going to even be interested in this? I think that's the question, really.
Right, right. Agreed. I understand. I'm right in the ballpark with you for sure on that one. So, okay. So let's see. You've
But
asked
Jillian has something.
oh, go
I have,
ahead.
I have a
Would you-
question, Steve.
Yeah.
I don't usually think of, or I don't think of, the Michael teachings as proselytizing, but I
Mhm.
also think, I mean, when I think of
Excuse me.
the Michael teachings, it feels like, and to quote Karen Willett, you look at it and you're either part of the Michael, either you're one of Michael or you're not, and if you are, you kind of devour it. And if you haven't been a Michael student in the past, you kind of go, oh, okay, whatever, but not really into it. So I guess I'm wondering, A, if that perception is accurate, and B, how have we as a community grown in the past? And I don't want to distract from Connie's question, but it's a question about have have the people in the Michael teachings proselytized or tried to, you
You're
know what I mean?
seeing Kath. Yes, I do. You're seeing Kath laugh because Kath has been like you in the teachings a long time, and she has seen a lot of that part of it as well. So I imagine she's getting gotten by your question in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
So
I don't know, Kath, but it's not a rhetorical question. It's a real question.
no, I realize that. And I think the answer is that there have been those channels, and it probably even at times myself, who have found myself being so electrified or turned on to or economically motivated to move this teaching as some kind of a self-development tool and not or and not just a philosophical exploration.
Mhm.
And I believe that that has certainly happened. I suppose I could point fingers at myself on occasion for sure. And I wouldn't want to point fingers at any of my colleagues, but I believe almost all of my colleagues have done it at one time or another. You know, um,
Mhm.
well-intentioned or what have you. But um, so where we're at now gets back to what we were talking about earlier in some ways between Kath and Connie and myself and a few other people, and that is what is this teaching? And what are we trying to present? An open forum, a marketing spot, a training lab, what kind of thing, and what kind. Then, of course, who is going to appeal to any one of those necessarily? And of course, Kath, I just saw you take yourself off of mute. Did you have a comment that you wanted to make?
I want to apologize to Jillian. It's I wasn't laughing at you, honey. It was just that the intensity with which what you are asking has been debated on back channels in the last 6 weeks. I have not been involved in 35 years of Michael teachings. And it's not that we have any answers to your questions. It's just the depth with which we've been having to grapple with those issues to even like to your point about proselytizing. It's like we used to just say that the student will find us. We don't have to advertise. Like they'll find us one way or another. And then that's been questioned. And it's like, well, maybe we should have been pushing it. I don't know. So, honey, I am sorry, but it was just
No, I've been doing this 35 years too, and it's one of those things that's like it never occurred to me to proselytize. I have
Huh.
purchased more copies of the Michael, the personality puzzle and handed off to people. I think I've probably bought 20 of those
easy.
just to hand them, and if people were interested, they came back, we had discussions, and some people did, and most people didn't. I didn't consider that proselytizing because I also give a lot of other books out. But it was kind of, I was taken aback by the question.
Yeah, and just we don't even we have no answer. Like I've gone to building an emotionally centered website with a philosophy that I didn't even have 6 weeks ago. And Connie's gone a different way for the structural stuff. And it's like, and we don't have an answer. Like, are we saving the past? Are we sending it to the future? Is it a bridge of light, or are we going to call it done? Or are we going to go on? And who's going to go on? I mean, just since the last East Coast gathering, it has gotten just very intense about stuff I didn't think we'd ever talk about again. I was ready to put a bow on it.
Well, thank you for creating the context for me because I was really taken aback. And
Sorry, I'm sorry.
I'm assuming you don't use the word proselytize, but that's what it feels like.
Well, it is, and that was one of the things that like Connie and I had a long discussion about what's wrong with charging money, because several of us in the original meetings were saying no, it's about agape. At this point, we're giving back and we want to pay forward. But again, Connie was right, which is if there are people that want to somehow find us, it is very difficult. It is. And so we're just trying
I
to,
looked when I found it, it was like 1991, when I got into it, and I took a class from Stephen Hawley, but it's not easy to find. But anyway, and I don't want to, I'm afraid I've already like hijacked the class, but I just wanted to understand where the question was coming from and now and then go back to the cards because that's what people came here to learn about. But it will help me to understand what we're reading in the spread if I understand the intention.
yeah. And Connie, so
And if
Connie,
I'm a
Oh,
are we doing it and are we
well,
done?
there we go.
Well stated, really well stated.
And for
So,
me, the
yep, go ahead.
context is that I discovered the Michael teachings 2 years ago. So I'm a newbie. And it was like I was like trying to find my way through a dense fog to try to figure out what in the heck is this? And you have to, and I have pragmatism and perseverance in my overleaves. And if I didn't, and a little stubbornness, and if I didn't have those, I would have never found my way
right.
into the teachings. And so it just, when at the Michael gathering, when they were talking about the future, I thought, well, shouldn't we make it easier for people to know what this is all about so they can decide if this is something that would be useful to them? Is there a potential person out there like me who's old and just stumbling into this after years of spiritual growth work? Anyway.
At
So,
least there are websites now, which there
yeah.
weren't before.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I ordered Varda's book and I opened it up and there was the chart was the first thing I like, what is this?
Yeah.
It was like, it was in a foreign language. Anyway, so that was the context for
No,
me.
thank you for that. Again, my apologies if I derailed.
No. This is all great discussion. That's
Yeah.
why I'm so happy for this class. This is lively. So
Yeah.
let's see.
Yeah.
Connie, we're going to do this thing and at least give it about 15, 20 minutes. And, so I'm holding it up and I'm going to run my finger over. So the first card is history. All right. So
I'm sorry, you have to do it again. I have to use
okay.
intuitive.
All right. Can you see my finger?
Mhm. Okay, there. Back.
All right. All right.
No,
So
there's
that's the
next to it.
history.
Okay.
That's
I
number
think there's
one.
a next to it, but
Oh, I did? Oh, sorry about that. Okay. Well, then
But you know,
I'll,
I trust your instincts there too. I wouldn't
well,
mind if
okay.
you pulled all
This
the
is my
cards.
best attempt to let you do it. So, all right.
No, no,
Next finger
you pick
run.
them. You pick them. You pick them. It's fine. It's too
Well,
difficult for
oh
me.
no, I like this. I like this. I really want to involve you. I really would. So, this
I
is
mean,
potential.
I could do it from my own cards and tell you what the card is.
Then the problem with that is then I'd have to go find it in here.
Yeah,
So
okay.
I'm just gonna so give it again. Just
Okay.
trust yourself. Say when.
There. No. Back. There.
This
Right
one.
there. No.
Whoops. That one. This one.
No, actually it is the one sticking out. To go with that one.
This one.
No, the one in front.
This
There we
one.
no.
Okay. Yes. No.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's the one. All right. All right. So this is
I
the
really would rather you
potential.
pick the cards. I'd really rather you pick the cards. It's too
All
difficult
right. All
for
right.
me.
I'll go ahead and I'll do that, gang. I'll go pick them. All right. So, um, let's see. Is anyone by any chance looking at the website? Because I can't remember all the positions again. Um, what the third position is. Barbara, by chance, are you looking at yours?
Yeah,
What?
interference.
Okay, the interference card. Okay. So I'm going to probably lay them out three because 10 is just too long. Okay, so that's interference. Next one is,
Protection.
all right, protection. Okay. All right, next one,
Unconscious.
unconscious. All right. Next after that,
Looming.
looming. Okay. Sounds like we're bird watching, doesn't it? Oh, there's a looming. Okay. Next one.
Karmic themes.
Karmic themes. All right, where are you? Oh, this one is tricky. It's letting me go through the deck, but it's saying, I don't know. I don't know. Oh, there you are. Okay. Karmic themes. All right. What else?
Hopes and fears.
Hopes and fears. Okay. Got it. Next,
Your resolve.
your resolve. They say you want some resolution. Oh, wait, but different thing. Okay. And last one, what gets gotten, correct?
Gets gotten, yes.
Oh, good. All right. I'm glad my little momentary sage jags of. All right. All right. So now I'm going to share the second camera and we'll look at this together. All right. So, okay, there we have. All right. Let me back it up just a wee bit. All right. So there we can see all of them pretty well. Okay. So, first one. And I'm going to turn them all over and just name them, but I don't want to go too long overwards. Okay, so our history is the exalted card in the positive pole of expanded or expansion. Okay, the potential card is masculine energy focus.
Mm.
And the interference card, isn't that interesting? Positive pole of the old soul.
The
Fulfillment.
what?
Positive pole is the old soul card, and it's in the positive pole of fulfillment. But notice so far, this is a totally expansionary reading so far. Okay, here's the interference. Okay, here's our friend, the chief feature of self-deprecation, abasement. It's one of my favorite pictures in this entire deck, I must say. All right, and let's see, what's looming
Protection.
is the Mars card and endurance. That's interesting.
That's
So
protection,
even,
not
what's oh, it's protection. Oh, okay, thank you for the clarification. So protection. Oh, okay, good one. Get some of that
Wait a minute,
that Mars
you're number
endurance.
5. Number 5 is unconscious.
Oh, that's the unconscious card.
6 is
Okay, well
moving.
that's all right. So number 6 is what again?
Looming.
Looming. Okay. So reevaluation of the positive pole simplification. So notice, gang, so far, 50% of this already is expansionary. So, in other words, positive pole, positive pole, positive pole, positive pole, positive pole. So far, one negative pole. Let's see what we get on the next one. What's number 7, Barbara?
Karmic themes.
Karmic themes. Oh, interesting. Karmic themes, frequency, dissonance, like we're out of sync with something. Okay. Number and the next one, number
Hopes and fears.
hopes and fears. Ah, there's the Essence Twin card again. And interestingly enough, it's in the same position as the online, same card in the same position as the online reading.
Interesting.
Okay, and next
Your resolve.
is the resolve. The resolve is positive pole of moving center, productivity. So notice, gang, so far, 9 cards, we have 8 illuminated or positive poles.
Wow.
And last but not least, what gets gotten relative to the second card of focus? So, my friends, this is the cycle off card. It came up in the negative pole, and it's in the end of the cycle. It's
Wow.
exhaustion. So,
Wow.
what is it about our teaching that we have exhausted already, or given all this positive juju might exhaust us?
Wow.
Because otherwise, this is if we spin it around, remember the exercise that I showed you. You can always spin around a card to see if its relevance is more informative if you change the poles. So, cycle off is literally the end of a project. If we have a cycle off, it's the equivalent to exhaustion. I chose exhaustion because we can die and still not having done our life task. We just ran out of steam, right? Or we can touch all bases, we're finished, and we're done. Now, if we were going to make an affirmation out of this, I'd say let's leave that what gets gotten on the masculine energy is completion. And so to me, now it really makes this an interesting, even more interesting than the exhaustion card. Because either we have 2 negative poles and the rest all positive, or 3 negative poles and the rest all positive. What gets gotten is another way of saying what's the conclusion in a very real sense of all this activity relative to what you started off with. And what you started off with was the potential card. So masculine energy, being focused, getting it done. It's interestingly enough, since it's literally the cycle off or the done card. It's the card that is literally comes up at the end of a cycle anyway, regardless of the pole we put it in. And it fell right into that placeholder. Because this is the second to last card in the deck. And the last card in the deck is Nexus. Now, just out of curiosity, is anybody else feeling a little confused about whether it's positive or negative pole? And if there's any head nodding, I'm going to do it because I'm prompting you to say yes. So here's what I do. I'd go into my deck and I'd say, all right, give me further clarification. And I'd pick another card. And interestingly enough, look what the other card is. give me clarification. It's the resolution of karma.
Oh,
So the end of this cycle will be the resolution of some kind of karmic wave that this whole process has, brought up and has, and Connie, since we had many questions in your question, um, as I said when I did this, I believe it's still your first question was, and if I were trying to scroll back the transcript, I could probably read it. But I think that what you were asking was, about what are the people wanting right now
Yeah. Yeah.
out of this teaching?
Yeah.
And it is interesting because if people are wanting this kind of information, let's assume for a moment that this amalgam of cards is actually teaching us what people want to know out of the Michael teachings. Well, then in which case, folks, let me give you a quick run through if I answer it that way. If the history has been, they want an expanded view of the universe. For those of you who can see this card, it's literally a sideways view of the Milky Way taken from the Hubble. And somebody had a fun little notion of trying to put perspective on Exalted and said, "You are here on the outer arm of the Milky Way galaxy." Just to kind of give you a big Exalted view, right? Now, what if people are looking for that Exalted view? Masculine energy. How do we, as old souls, focus our energy and get through or get by feeling like shit? Which is the self-deprecation card, right? Which many of us, Michael students, know that many of us old souls, this is almost our native default chief feature that we often go to on almost by default. It's like after all those lifetimes, we look at life sometimes as, oh shit, I'm still doing this. What the hell's going on? What's wrong with me, right? There's that innate kind of, so all of us who are old souls can fall into that. So what if a person was looking for some resolution of how to deal with that? Well, one answer Michael would say is endurance. You got to work through it, right? You got to, whether it means physically with your body working through it or just having the continuation. How do you go about it? Simplify. Simplify, simplify, simplify. Start taking apart a lot of your assumptions. Now, if you do that, what's likely to happen and what might be something that's already facing you in your life? And the answer is we're out of step with our own frequency. Little caveat. Michael has said over the last 3 years that one of the greatest dangers of us being in the technological era, but even before that, entering into what we call the new age and human potential, is the underlying message of that young soul culmination energy was hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, faster, more, better, greater output. Well, for many of us, particularly those of us who are, say, frequencies from under 50 downward, maintaining that kind of amplified social frequency is exhausting. It's draining, debilitating. It throws us out of being ourselves. So, what's a way is how do we find, a true love, a true partner, a true way of balancing one side of ourselves against another. That's one of the other ways I use the Essence Twin card, not only as another person, but imagine the Essence Twin, as we know in this teaching, is another being that we fused with at creation, who is another aspect of ourself. And when we are in harmony with ourselves, those energies can flow together. Then finally, or getting close to finally, how are we going to do it? Well, you got to get productive. And we, many of us know, we old souls, can be, of the soul age groups, some of the least productive. Not always by any means, but because many of us find ourselves more interested in cycling off, being done, and then what? Finishing, resolving our karmas. So that's another way that I could look at this and evaluate this reading. It is not the only way. It is just giving another spin to Connie's question and how I could go through these cards. Go ahead, Kath. That look on your face was priceless.
Okay. It's like, I'm just going to be impatient here and say, okay, what's the answer? Are we saying that the student cadre is done and we are cycling off and we're done with our karmas and there isn't that many people left to come? Or are we saying if you keep your nose to the grindstone, there'll be more coming in and they will be able to cycle off with you? Like,
And you
I
know what,
don't
my friend? You know what I tell you is
take
that
another card.
that you could. I mean, you could literally just do a jump start and say, "Okay, I'll choose one card, whatever the hell it is."
Steve, get
And
the
it's the
card.
time card. It's the time card in the positive pole, the eternal. So much for your quick answer, darling. Um, uh, so
Thank you
it
so
it looks
much.
like you were, since this is the third most powerful card in the deck to me, as I've told you guys last week, I said that the two bookends, the Tao and the Nexus, are 1 and 2, and the time card is the third most powerful third most powerful card because it's the totality of the physical plane. We live in time. So,
And it may
sorry,
be
Kath.
time to cycle off.
It may be time to cycle off. Maybe it's time that we just say, okay, we'll put up a website with all the Michael information and just say, folks, have at it.
I have a question, Stephen. I know I don't
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go
we
ahead.
know that not everybody's a Michael student.
Yes.
It's do we have a sense of, if you were guessing, like what percentage of population of the of the world, or even of the United States, or even of, whoever, um, whereabouts do you think have been part of the Michael teachings over millennia?
About 100,000 is what I've heard.
About how many?
100,000.
Oh, that's right. That's what
I got that, and then other people have gotten that.
that's what I didn't Shepherd. I think Shepherd had put that out, but
Several of us have gotten the same thing. I don't
so if
know that
we
anybody's gotten anything different than that.
It
so if
roughly
we
equates to the first 12 cadres of our energy ring.
Yeah.
okay, so
That's
that makes sense.
that's
I
what
was wondering.
that's how it's often put out in a general
So that's
way.
the Michael
Yeah, it's
math.
not an
So
exact number. It's that's
Not an
about.
exact number,
Yeah.
right?
right, but at least there's a lot, excuse me, a logic to that. So that means that even, if we're looking at how many millions of people there are on the planet, there is a limited pool of people who have been Michael students and are in the process of learning, evolving, and getting ready to cycle off. But doing our learning and doing our lessons. So that to me says, you know, I've just, I haven't real I have never it had never occurred to me that we should be out fishing, or I can't use the
The
word
P
proselyte.
word. No, don't use the P word.
I was going to say proselytizing is such a loaded word.
It is.
Yeah.
And
But being
I
a beacon of light, right? Like we could be a beacon, you know? Let's
Well,
go do it.
To honor
There's a lot.
Connie's need,
uh-huh,
Connie wanted to have an easier way to help share this with other people who were looking for it or discovered it like she did. And
right,
then she had such a hard time finding it. And then, she was willing to come in gung ho saying, I want to help create something that
right.
opens this up to people. Now, I will tell you folks that as I have gotten along further, um, many of my clientele now are not Michael students, but
Mhm.
they find the way that I use the terminology incredibly useful to them.
Useful. Yeah.
And
Um,
that's the approach that I take with the applied Michael approach that, is my derivation of the Michael teachings.
well, and trying to understanding Connie's intention, and intention's
Mhm.
incredibly important to me. Um, it's there is to me a world of difference to make oneself as accessible as possible versus going out and throwing a net to catch. Um, I was a marketing person for 45 years. So, it's one of those where it's like, I personally have like such a separation there, but it was really interesting. It's a new thought for me. But it does feel very different to say, how can we make everything more accessible than how do we round up some more folks?
Right.
Absolutely.
We
It's
were,
accessibility, availability,
That's
and ease of interaction with the concepts.
Right. Does,
yeah,
does that capture your intention, Connie?
absolutely.
Okay.
It's more like if somebody is seeking, they don't
Right.
have to work so hard to find anything that leads them into the teachings. I thought this reading was very, very revealing. And um, what is the the one that's simplification? What was that card representing?
that's
Let's see.
looming. What is, it's the next event or change to enter the equation.
See,
But
I
Yeah,
thought that was the key. I
yeah.
thought that was the key.
Simplification is
The
really
key
important.
to everything is the accessibility key does not
And
require the person looking to have the terminology and know everything. It's
Mhm.
simplified so that they see the root in that can be useful. Um, so anyway, that one really stuck out for me. That simplification card, it really resonated as a path.
Yeah, same here.
and by
I
the
just
way, if
looked.
I might add, just to name the card, look at it. It's a server-oriented card. It's an
Mhm.
emotionally centered oriented card.
Mhm.
Oh my
It
God.
is a goal card. So our goal, that goal that is looming, is about how do we reevaluate and produce something that is simplified in service to others. And as Kath mentioned, even connecting at the heart level. All of those symbols are in there on that card.
And it's really, I looked up just now, where can I find a channel in the Michael teachings? And it was kind of weird what came up. Um, but it's like there are different things that are going to come up now than did 2 years ago, or maybe even tomorrow. But a new age spiritual doctrine with lots of information. See more on Wikipedia. 7 levels of karmic debt. See more under, and then Soul Age, Michael teachings, and then lots of blurbs and blurbs and blurbs, and then contacts to various channels we all know, and books on Amazon. So it's very interesting. If people have anything about the language, they can look it up and find lots of ways to connect to lots of things. But they have to know the language.
but
Exactly.
you
That
don't have to know
that's
the
the thing.
language, and you don't have to know the teachings to be able to use some parts of it.
Oh, no,
And
no.
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I think is where the future is. Michael has told us a few years ago that eventually that the body of work that we know will become extremely popular. It'll become as popular as Myers-Briggs. it will be one of the best known things, but it won't be in the same form that it is now. It won't require, what we do. It'll be in a simpler form. It'll be a much more mainstream thing. So, every religion, every teaching, every philosophy has a really, really deep core of people that study it. And we may be those people, but there's lots of things you can use about all those teaching or theories or programs or whatever. You don't need to know all the stuff behind it to be able to make it useful.
Right. No,
That's
I was
where
just
we're
thinking if
that's where we're
somebody was
headed.
looking up for Michael teachings, you can find a lot. But if you looked up, you know, evolution of soul, you'd probably have Michael teachings. There's a lot of ways to find it, is all I'm saying. And with AI,
Right.
there's even more, and some of it might be accurate.
Yeah.
But Connie's looking for one of the things she's trying to organize also is entry to essence contact. And so, yeah, you can find the books and there's some stuff on the web, but like East Coast Michael Gathering or the West Coast gatherings, they weren't really promoted, like you said, Jillian. It was like you get there, you've been there, you'll know someone. And it is maybe what this simplification aspect is that rather than all the overleaves, all the structural stuff. Because what you find you can find the books, right? Like you said, you can find the books and you can find websites and you can find some channels. But the students,
The community is what you're talking about.
which is whether or not it's actually a community, because we've never really created that either, because that ends up being dogmatic at some point, right? Rather
It's
than
it,
being the open teaching that can go wherever you want it to.
yeah, but I was thinking like the East Coast Gathering is community. This that what we're doing right now is community from my perspective.
Yes.
We have a group that meets on Wednesdays. I do love circles with Mike North. And it's just like I think particularly post-COVID, and as a lot of us feel like the world's getting kind of scary out there, we're finding like it feels better to have community. So maybe community is my goal, my objective in a lot of this. I don't know if that's yours, Connie, but they are different from saying the teachings versus
Hmm.
the people who are inclined to consider their teachings.
If I may just make a statement that I do regularly throughout my writings, is remember the Michael teachings is a means to an end. The end
Exactly.
is community, connection,
Exactly.
more
Mhm.
love in the world and bridges
Exactly.
to humanity. It is the
Right.
mechanism. It is not us
Exactly.
about becoming Michael experts, Michael students,
Right.
Michael
Exactly.
aficionados at all. This is the vehicle to help us to get to being better, more whole humans in ourselves, and thereby open the door to connecting with other people as well.
And that's the whole
Exactly.
point of it. And what
Whole
the
point.
first channelings, that was the point. Love is the point.
Yes,
I
yes,
agree.
love is the
That
point.
is the point. It's a vehicle. It's a pathway to create unity, to
Mhm.
create community, to create
To
love.
help discuss to create a language, a nomenclature, to help discuss it in a way that's expansive and that can
Yes.
bridge some of our um, perhaps our own idiolects about words. In other words, our own unique definitions. Because if we can have those conversations, we can build on them. So
And in a really selfish way, how do we hook up with those people that we have karma with so we can burn it all off and keep going?
yeah, right,
Yeah.
right,
Sorry, it
right.
was just struck me as funny.
No, that's fun. That's fun. I think it's good. Well, my friends, we've gone about 10 minutes over. And so I would invite just unless there is anything really burning and so forth, I would say that we should probably call it a night. Are there any final questions or comments?
I
Thank you.
thought that I think tonight was a really interesting interchange, and I learned about the cards, but also Connie and Kath in particular, thank you, and Barbara as always, but I mean for raising the question and initiating a conversation that I found really interesting and provocative.
Well, thank you for
So
starting with the question.
I'm going to toot my own horn here.
No,
The
go
first
ahead.
reason, the first reason that I developed these cards was to facilitate meaningful conversations.
Hmm.
So
No.
congratulations. You guys had a
Woo!
very good,
Oh,
very
thank you.
good cross, cross discussion tonight. Multiples of you had good cross discussions and inputs. So thank you.
Yeah, this was really good.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. So we feel complete for tonight. We're good.
Yep.
All
Thank you
right.
so
So
much.
you bet. I will,
Thanks.
of course, make I'll get the transcript saved, and I'll get the video and the audio saved and all that kind of stuff, and I'll post that. And then next week is our final week. So I've given you pretty much as much data learning about the cards and the decks. So as you guys think about it this week, if there's any notion about using the deck or anything, how to deconstruct pieces of the cards or the layouts themselves, bring those questions and we can tidy that up at the last class. Okay. All right, everyone. For those of you who are coming tomorrow night to the Michael night, I will see you then. And for those of you who aren't, I'll see you next Thursday.
Thank
All
you.
right, everyone. Have a good night. And off we go.